We are the only party who are against defunding and disarming. I think that we can do both. Like, we can prevent, we can have a provincial agenda, but we need to have a strong presence of the police force at the same time. In Montreal North, we had, for example, some basketball with the police force, with the kids. Of course, we have to go to the source. That's why, and I agree that we have to go to the source. But we cannot say we'll take out some money for the others. We can do both at the same time. So this is an ecosystem where you need a social agenda, but at the same time, you need to secure the area and fight a strong fight against crime.
So let's talk about the numbers. The mayor increased the budget to the SPVM and said that it was at the rate of inflation. And it wasn't true. It was actually double. When it became popular to fund policing, she said, yes, I did increase the funding. So there's some double talk there. Also, there was $100 million additional invested in the police, which the mayor put very, very little into community groups. It seems as though the mayor only figured out she was the mayor of Montreal only last year. In her first year, $1 million. Second year, $2 million. So the mayor has underfunded and definanced, actually, young people and community groups, and put $3 million towards basketball and $800 million towards...
But what is your plan, Mr. Holness? So, because you can talk as much as you want about me, but what is your cost? What is your plan looks like? That's about defunding. How much are you going to take from the SPVM and put it into something else? We want to know.
Thank you so much for the question. We have a $1 billion plan to invest in health and social services, as well as sports, leisure, and recreation infrastructure. Right now, there's $550 million going towards salaries. We think that should be more on the lines of $450 million. And we want to ensure that the hierarchy of the SPVM is less about management and connect the top to the people on the ground. That's around $100 million reallocation. Last point, currently the mayor invested $140 million in social housing, while police officers are policing young people and homeless people to the rate of 40% of all tickets go to homeless people. Those are the numbers, and numbers don't lie.
Let me be clear. Montreal is a francophone city consisting of a diverse cultural mosaic, including a vibrant anglophone community. They all deserve to have services, and we are going to provide it to them. As a service provider, our focus and commitment are to continue servicing our population. This is self-evident for matters including 311, public safety, security, and public health related services. I am going to be the mayor of unity and the best ally to implement the principles of living together. Linguistic peace is vital for me, whether as mayor, an MP, or as a minister of Canada. While I agree with the objective of the law to promote and protect the French languages, as a local government to English and other linguistic communities, the question of applicability is key. We need a common sense approach, and my duty as Mayor of Montreal is to ensure that the Quebec government understands our need to serve our English community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coderre. Mr. Holness, you have 1 minute.
Montreal is a multicultural, multilingual metropolis. It is the most beautiful city in the world with over 200 cultural communities. Montreal is unique. We need to ensure that we build a home for all Montrealers where you could really feel a sense of security and that you can get any job that you want, any opportunity that you like. We want to recognize Montreal for what it is, a multicultural, multilingual metropolis. I am the only candidate on this stage that supports that ideology and rejects Bill 21 and Bill 96. We will not be in any way, shape, or form upholding that law, and we are going to ensure that all businesses, all Montrealers, will be able to have services to do business in the language of the choice, particularly in English or in French.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holness. Ms. Plante.
Yes, thank you. So, of course, this is a very passionate debate. I understand why, because a language is, of course, words, but it's also an open window to a culture. And so I understand that some people are worried about how they will be recognized, about their rights, about their contribution to this city. So for me, you know, I've been saying the same thing, whatever I'm talking to Anglophone or Francophone, my position has always been clear. I support Bill 96. But I went into commission while in campaign to promote and to share my thoughts and our expectation here in Montreal to have, for example, the 311 out of on the list of exclusion, because we want to make sure that every Montrealers, whatever language they talk, whoever they are, they need to have the services they deserve. That's what a city does first, is giving services. So for me, we can valorize the language. French should be a glue. But for sure, we need to also protect the rights of Anglophone, but also of the Indigenous people.
Thank you very much, Ms. Plante.
You have to reform la déontologie policière and ensure that the member of the executive committee responsible for the 38 recommendations, particularly recommendation 37, it gets enacted, and that you continuously fund the Bureau of the Commissioner that fights for systemic racism, which is Bashra Manaï.
Can I say,
Yes, what
you
would you
make,
do,
you
Ms.
make the STM, the SPVM, everybody, the city accountable. And for that, you need to have more transparency, whatever it's through body cam or whatever it's by the
You
check
can't
police.
say body cameras. You voted against body cameras for the last 4 years.
Can I please end my
But-
phrase,
yes,
please,
but
Mr.
don't lie
Holness?
to the public. We're on
So
national TV here.
To do the street check. So those are mechanisms that we're putting in place to bring more transparency, and that is crucial.
The reality is that the current administration did have that leadership, and there was no presence. We started the reconciliation process with Indigenous people, for example. We said we had 4 pillars regarding safety, and we talk about prevention. So the living together approach is to have a balanced approach between openness and vigilance. We need a vigilance agenda. We need to have more people accountable. We need to change the training, but we need to have some inclusive strategy at the decision-making process. And by having, for example, the director of SPVM, also a deputy general manager, you will be part of all the decision-making. There will be both sensitive way to make an answer to those issues.
Okay, I just want to clarify before I continue on what people can expect for taxes, because you brought them up. Mr. Coderre, 2% in the first mandate?
Well, you know, our average when we were there was 1.8%. So we're okay with 2%. But
The
what we need to
inflation
do,
rate is at 4.4
no, the inflation rate now is at
and it's rising.
5.1. But you have to look at the different indicators, because we have from the city how they were talking about sometime metropolitan benchmarks, inflation, and you have the overall in the province. So we have to take a look at it. But I said that with 2%, we will be able to make it happen.
And you'll hold at 2%, Ms. Plante?
Yeah, that's the point to start with. Yes.
Okay.
Far more judicious, 3%. I want to remind all Montrealers, the mayor lied in 2017, said she would not increase it above inflation. She did, so, you know, fool me once.
Do you want to
shame
respond
on
to that?
Yeah, sure. The average of our the tax over our first mandate is 1.7, and the inflation was 1.8.
We're speaking about the dishonesty
The
during
inflation
the-
was at 1.2, and he went to 2.1.
She's attacking Coderre. The dishonesty is what, during the 2017 election, you clearly said you were not going to increase taxes above inflation, and the first thing you did is you increased taxes above inflation.
No, which we didn't, because
Oh, yes,
Thank
you
you.
did.
And this is the lying that I hope that Montrealers see through this screen, from the pink line to taxes
Can
to
I
the amount of
please
social
respond to
housing
this?
built.
This is a
It is
tax.
very
This is
dishonest.
so
It's
free-
extremely
Ms.
dishonest.
Plante,
this
go
is a
ahead.
debate where people want to hear about ideas. All you're saying, and even when
Yeah,
there's
but
question
they
about
need an
numbers, you don't
honest-
answer concretely, you just keep on attacking me. I can defend myself, don't worry. So all I'm saying is, during the first mandate, our goal was to be at inflation. When we took office, there was a gap between revenues and the
That's not true.
expenses of $358
true.
million. It's in the book,
No, it's
Mr. Coderre.
$174
So if we
million,
had to find
please.
solution, and it was not a tax, but for sure, I understand that Montrealers took it this way, and I apologize for that. So what we will be doing is continue, like we did during the mandate, we stay close to the inflation.
With all
Just for
respect,
the record,
Madam, with all
'cause she said
respect,
that I
Madam
attacked
Plante.
her. Just for the record, if a candidate for mayor establishes that you increased taxes above inflation, this should not be taken personal. This is simply
Okay,
stating
we're
the
going to
numbers.
move on.
You know, you've all alluded to this idea of renovictions, and there have been way too many reports of renovictions in the city. And that's when people are being forced out of their homes so that landlords can renovate and then lease the apartments out at higher rents. Ms. Plante, how are you going to stop that?
Yeah, so what we decided to do is to have a bylaw within the boroughs that wants it. And right now, there's only the Projet Montréal boroughs that have moved with having a bylaw to protect from renoviction. It is not the case in Ensemble Montréal boroughs. And as well, I do want to say that I find it very troubling that, Mr. Coderre, you talk about leadership, about housing, knowing that your candidate as mayor of Verdun is actually a professional flippers. He contribute to take away some affordable housing for families, and you say you have the leadership. Please, this is not serious.
Mr. Coderre?
Well, I would suggest this. Sometime also there's people who wants to renovate their house. They can renovate it before the bylaws. But I think that you have a lot of people who wants to renovate it. There's a difference between renoviction and renovation. There's some young family who wants to remain in Montreal, but because it's too costly and because they can renovate, this is an issue by itself. And yes, this is the bylaws that some of your people place in some of the boroughs. So we can make all those little innuendos, but the reality is our role is to make sure that everybody will be able to get that unit. And right now, with the 2020, I mean, people are going to other places. We are just good for the suburbs.
Mr. Holness?
So right now, the renovictions is a very difficult issue. We have companies internationally, also in Ontario, that are coming in, that are renovating existing apartments, evicting local residents, and that's very problematic. The government of Quebec has to intervene. Right now, there are, in the civil code, there are loopholes that allows for them to do this. Right now, kudos to quelques Projet Montréal boroughs that have this bylaw, but the provincial government has to intervene, amend the civil code, and that can close all the loopholes, and that for us is a major concern.
And about that, I want to say we're the only party that actually is introducing a real rent registry, not a fake one like Mr. Coderre, which is voluntary. For us, it's mandatory because it is the best way to know exactly what's happening on the market and to make landlords accountable for rising prices very high if it's the case. There's amazing landlords around the island, but we want to make sure that the ones that are not doing the right job or are putting away, sending away people, we're going to be after that.
10 seconds?
Yeah.
The question was about renovictions, not rent registry. But to talk about rent registry for a moment, right now, for the last 4 years, nothing was done. So to talk about it now during the election, it's quite, I guess, quite interesting.